Hello, and welcome to Stories from the View, a podcast from the Pleasant View Senior Center in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. On this podcast, we invite East Longmeadow residents to tell us stories about their lives and events. And today's guests are Terry Glusko and Al Michaels. And Terry and Al are here because they are veterans, and Veterans Day is approaching. So we're going to have a conversation with them. And I'd like to introduce your host, Mary Jenowin Kaplan. And here's Mary.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate the introduction. And we are so honored today to have two of the 944 veterans in East Longmeadow here with us today, Al and Terry. And they're going to talk about their history and tell us their story for Stories in the View. So, Terry, Al, who's starting with us?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Mary, for having us. It really is an honor to be here and to let the town folk in East Longmeadow give us the opportunity to impart our experiences. I was born in a little coal mining town of about 500 people in Pennsylvania, deep in the Alleghenies. And after you graduated high school, which were 13 in my class, if you didn't go work in the coal mines, it was the military or trying to find your way in another avenue. So anyway, while growing up and everything and selling Christmas cards and washing cars and whatever else, I managed to save enough money to get on a aircraft, which I had never done before. And coal miner's son headed to Florida. And I was only there about 3 weeks and couldn't find employment or anything. So I ran into an old buddy of mine. Ironically, they graduated 2 years before me. And he was down there and he was kind of in the same situation I was. So he said he had a friend in Washington, D.C. So the two of us took a bus, went up to D.C., and the three of us hung out together for probably 3 months. And I got tired of all the stuff that we were doing. So I took a bus to New York City. And while I was in high school, I always sat there and daydreamed, and I got chewed out for that by the teacher a lot of times. My daydream was to become a Navy fighter pilot. So anyway, after I got to New York City, I got a job as a messenger in P. Lorillard, which was an old cigarette company at that time. And after doing that for about 2 months and losing weight and living on White Tower hamburgers, on a Friday afternoon, there was a recruiting station right in the center of Times Square. It was about, 2:30 in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, and I went down there, and the Navy recruiter had gone for the day. The Marine recruiter had called in sick, and I don't know what happened to the Army recruiter, but the only guy there was the Air Force recruiter. So about an hour later, I had enlisted, and he says, you can go home. This was on a Friday. He says, you got to be back here Monday morning. And I says, well, I don't have enough money to get home. So he pulled out $18 out of his pocket for a round trip ticket back to the coal mining town. So I did that. And that Monday morning, I reported back to, in New York City, it was called the Whitehall Center. And that was the induction center. And there you got your physical and your shots and your whatever else they gave you. And at 7 o'clock that night, we were on an aircraft to San Antonio, Texas. And when I stepped off of the bus, about an hour later, I called my mother. And I said, I'm not sure if I should be here.
But it was your dream.
Yeah, this is not being a Navy fighter pilot, I said, So anyway, a long story short, after basic training, I was sent to Biloxi, Mississippi, and down there I had, I think, 14 months of training as an airborne and a ground radio operator, both. And then after that school, I was sent to Southeast Asia into first Wake Island, and was only there probably about a month, and they decided to move us further. So I wound up on Guam, and I was in Guam for 18 months. And I was only there, you can research this, but I was only there about 7 months. And Typhoon Karen hit and came through there at 185 miles an hour. And it wiped out 90% of Guam at the time. So, I mean, while the wind was blowing, it took the roof off, and we were just living in, we had good conditions, but they weren't that great. So the rest of the time I was there, they built Quonset huts. So for about 11 months or so, that's what we lived in. But I just found out a couple of days ago that having been over there for almost 2 years, I was exposed to Agent Orange. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But how that came about is that was on the cusp of the B-52s coming in there to go to North Vietnam to do all the bombing runs and the missions. And what they were doing is they would have aircraft fly over, and they would spray this liquid or whatever it was, and you could see the vapors in the air. It would come down, and it would lay on the ground. But they did that also to get rid of the mosquitoes, the rats, and the snakes, and everything else. And they would wait about 2 days, then the bulldozers would come in, and they would clear all that foliage out of there. But they were doing primarily because the B-52s were coming in, and those bombers needed a lengthy aircraft runway. And that was a development. And so and I had no idea, a lot of us did, what was going on and everything. But after that, then I was in Hawaii a little bit, and then I came back and I was stationed at Westover. And I came up here, didn't know what to expect. I had bought my first car, which was a 1960 Chevrolet Impala, a gorgeous thing. And my father paid for it because while I was in Guam and everywhere else, I probably drank up my money. And that was basically it. And so anyway, I packed everything and put it in my car, and I got up here a week early because I didn't really know my way up here. And half of the way up here, the highways weren't built. I didn't run into any highways until I hit the outskirts of New York. I think it was Danbury, Connecticut, or that area of New York, Connecticut line. And so anyway, I checked into the Wagon Wheel Motel on Riverdale Road. All right, that was a long, long time ago. So I stayed there for about 3 days, and I went up and I checked into the base and everything, and got assigned. And but I was there about a week, and they had a dance at the NCO club. So I went to the NCO club, and my buddy, I got to know him over 3 days after having a couple of beers and everything. And we went into the dance floor, and there were two girls standing there. And he says, "Which one do you want?" And I says, "You're giving me first choice." And I said, "Okay,
Good buddy.
good buddy." So there was this girl standing there, black hair, and they had those bouffant haircuts or hairstyles in that day. And I walked over and asked her to dance. And anyway, that's history. 57 years later, okay, I married her.
Oh, wow.
You know,
Day 3 at Westover, huh?
Day 3. Well, we didn't get married for 14 months later.
Right, but you met her.
But I met her.
This is
so,
fate.
So she was French, and I'm Polish. So anyway, after I kept saying, "Well, when am I going to meet your parents? When am I going to meet your parents?" She says, "Well, take it easy, slow down." She says, "I got to let them know what's coming." And I says, she says, "You're Polish." And I says, "When you meet my father, he's going to ask you questions." So that happened to take place one time, and we got to talking. We were sitting there drinking, I don't know what it was, a shot of whiskey or whatever. And he says, "What nationality are you?" And I said, "Polish." He says, "Well, in Ludlow, where I come from, he says, the railroad tracks, the French live on one side, the Polish on the other. And he says, you have to have a really good excuse or reason to cross the tracks. And I says, well, that's why I'm here. So anyway.
Good answer.
So it's just all actually fact. And he says, okay. So anyway, we got married. We had a really nice wedding. And at that time, there used to be a restaurant in West Springfield called Via Mary's. Okay. And I worked there. And then anyway, we got married and we got a little apartment in Springfield and didn't have enough money. I mean, she was a hairdresser. Okay. But still, between the two of us, we didn't have enough money. So I went and got a part-time job as a bartender down in West Springfield, tended bar. And then I found out I couldn't mix drinks that well. So right up the street was Dante's Inferno, the steakhouse. Mm-hmm. And right on the window, it says, "Love me tender." So I started cooking steaks there. And every time my wife would come in and she says, "Love me tender." So anyway, we stayed there for about another 9 months, and I got orders to go to England. And I was attached to the strategic bomber air command over there, and actually was assigned to a Royal Air Force station in High Wycombe. It was not an American base, but being on a Royal Air Force and British station, we had the amenities. We fell under their national health system. So we had the amenities of going to English hospitals every morning. For every kid you had, they would drop off a pint of milk. And I remember we had access to, we got a house over there. We rented that house and we lived in a little village called Flackwell Heath. And it was a little village of maybe about 1,000 people. But they had one doctor in there, and every time you took your kids to the doctor, it cost you 2 shillings. A shilling was 14 cents. It was 28 cents. So anyway, I had 2 kids over there, a girl and a boy. And we found out after a while that they had dual citizenship. And as a matter of fact, when my son turned 18 over here, he had to relinquish that dual citizenship and become an American. And that was a lot of administrative portions because we had to go through paperwork back and forth in England and everything just to cast the British, aside and things like that.
That's fascinating.
That's fascinating.
Dual citizenship.
That's
great. Let's put you on hold for a minute, Terry, and let's turn the microphone over to Al. Yeah. Al, tell us how you got started, and then we'll continue our conversation.
Well, I'm Al Michaels. I'm a retired Navy Master Chief. I have 30 years actual duty, but my military for pay, I have 42 years because I could have been recalled up to the age of 60. Well, it all started way back in on my birthday in 1966 when I decided to join the Navy because I didn't want to get drafted. And also, I was kind of tired of farming. I grew up in Ohio, Bowling Green, Ohio. And my father really didn't like that because I was one of his main farm hands, and I left. When I joined on my birthday. I decided to, I think I started out in Toledo, and then we were bused to Cleveland for our induction. And then they said, "Oh, no, you're going to be on a deferment plan, and you won't be on active duty until August the 2nd, 1966. So I went back home, farmed, got a little bit of a job at Bowling Green State University as an electronic technician. In my senior year, I went to a vocational high school, Pennant County Vocational High School. We were the first class. And that's where I met a Navy chief. He was an electronic technician. And I decided, shoot, I like this. I think I'm going to go ahead and join the Navy. And it was actually a very good career. So back in Cleveland, I get back to Cleveland, and they did another induction ceremony, and they put us on it was the first time I ever went by train to out to where the heck was it? Out to Great Lakes, and traveling by train. Hey, this is pretty good. Nice meal. Actually had a bedroom on the train, and but when I got off of that train, that's when and I, just like Terry was saying, what am I doing here? You know, is this really for me? It was 10 weeks, I believe, of boot camp, and for the first week, it was more shots. God, I think I got 22 shots in one day with the guns, the air guns. And all the big guys, they were passing out. Us little guys, we just stepped over them and kept going.
Tell me more about boot camp. I have never been.
Oh. What boot camp really is learning to work as a team. You took a lot of orders from the higher ups. Anybody that was a pay grade above you, they were your boss. And I had a first class that's an E6. That was our company commander. He was almost like my father. He treated us very well because he wanted everything that he could get out of us to become this team. And I think we had 60 people in our boot camp company. I believe the company was 484. I don't know why I remember it today, but we took exams to be advanced, and we got ready for war. And our main objective was to make sure the enemy brought home more body bags than what we did. And that's how it worked.
Terry's nodding, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how it worked. And from there, I left boot camp, I believe, in October, went home for 1 week, and then out to Key West, Florida for school. Oh, Key West, Florida is a good place to go to school. It was my first sonar school, and out the back door of the school was the beach and the ocean and the bar. I mean, that was a pretty good duty. After I left there, I went to. I decided to advance or extend my active duty to 6 years instead of 4. And I got another school in San Diego, California. And that's where my career really started, and the reason why I stayed so long. When I got to San Diego, I reported in, and I seen this old Master Chief in the Navy's an E9. He's at the top. And I seen him sitting at this desk. And I went, Master Chief, I said, how old are you, if you don't mind me? He says, I'm 74. I said, you're 74? He said, yeah, they recalled me back to active duty because I was the last 16-inch gun turret captain on the New Jersey when they retired it. And now they brought it back, and they were looking for people to be able to teach the new gunner's mates coming in. And he said, and by the way, he said, I had all of the training material and all of the blueprints and all that stuff stored in my basement because I knew somebody may need them someday. And they advanced him. I believe he was an E4 when he got out, E4, E5, and then they advanced him to E9 because of his age and his experience and whatever. What a gentleman he was. He was the grandfather. Everybody talked to him, wanted his advice to help them, and it was a lot of fun. And I looked at him. I said, "Geez, one day maybe I can make."
He was your role model.
And So I finished my first sonar school there and and I got my first ship. My first ship was in Bay City, Michigan. It was being built, the USS O'Callahan. It was named after Father Joseph T. O'Callahan. He was a Medal of Honor recipient from the USS Franklin. And actually they have the movie. I watched it the other day. It was on HBO or something like that. They had it on the TV. And he was Father Joseph T. O'Callahan. He was given the last rites to several sailors because the ship was almost totally destroyed, but it managed to still steam. And his sister, and I forget, Sarah O'Callahan. She was a Catholic nun, and she was there to christen the ship. And so I was stationed in Bay City, Michigan, as the nucleus crew. And when the ship was finally totally built, and we would ping sonar, and you could hear it 40 miles away in people's toilets because the sonar dome was stuck in the mud in the river, and when it pinged, you could hear it in the bathrooms in the hotel. Oh, in the hotel, it was really funny. You could hear it. Oh, they're pinging. And we finally left Bay City, Michigan, and steamed through the St. Lawrence Seaway. And at that time, the St. Lawrence Seaway was either going on strike or so we decided, I guess we could put the commissioning pennant up to get out, and then brought the commissioning pennant back down. And we showed up in July, July of 1968 in Boston. That's where the ship was commissioned. And that's where I met my wife. I went to a USO dance, the only one I ever went. No, yeah, I've been to a couple others, and I met her and her twin sister, Janice. Janice used to work here. She worked here up until she passed away in 2016, October 2016. And it's my wife's twin sister. And Janice was married to my twin brother. And we all lived on the same street in Springfield. That's where I would live now, in Springfield. And all our kids look alike. Genetically, our kids are brothers and sisters. They could be, my son. I have a daughter and a son, and Janice had a son, and but genetically they're all, they're all siblings. And people said, "Wait a minute, didn't you actually shop?" We'd go to Stop and Shop or whatever, and we would leave, and then my twin brother and Janice would come in,
and you're a twin also?
Oh yeah, and what was funny, they thought, "Wait a minute, you just got done shopping." We're identical twins, and it's to this day it's pretty cool, And when I left active duty in June of 1976, I decided I would join the reserve. So I spent 20 years in the reserve side of the house and officially retired for pay. I left there in 1996, and then from there, I had to stay physically fit until I was turned the age of 60 because I could be recalled. So my pay was based on 42 years of service.
That's great. Terry, I think we left you in London or England. Did you travel to other countries during your time of service?
Yes, the other countries, actually, I've been to Reykjavik, did duty in Reykjavik, Iceland, the Azores, which is a little island in the Atlantic, um, in Madrid, Spain, and uh, while over there in England, well, it's kind of funny because after we had our first child, my wife said I'd like to go home for a month, so I put her on an aircraft at Gateway Airport, and she went home for a month. And I told her that I would follow her in about 3 weeks. So um, I took a military hop about 7 weeks later, and it was supposed to go directly to Westover. And while we were in the air, after being in the Azores, um, had a problem with the aircraft. So we landed in the Azores, and we were there for 3 days until they fixed the aircraft. And that's where I was introduced to San Miguel beer.
Ah,
And so the only aircraft out of there was not to Westover, it was to Georgia. And I had on my winter uniform. When I got to Georgia, it was 105 degrees. So anyway, but those are the places that it has taken to me. And I had 28 years in the Air Force, and retired as a senior master sergeant. And out of those 28 years, eight and a half years was active duty, and the rest was all in the reserves, like Michael, like Al. And so anyway, when I got out of the service, I really, really missed it. But I had to get out of the service because my daughter, who was born over there, they detected she had cystic fibrosis, and they didn't have the medical facility over there at the time. So we had to come back home here so we could get her taken care of in Boston. But so anyway, I joined the reserves, and I got assigned to the 103rd Tactical Fighter Squadron in Connecticut. And while I was in Connecticut, there for virtually 20 years, we had two major deployments, actually to Germany twice. And the first one was to Ramstein Air Force Base. And we, after being there as a radio operator and a few things, and while I was over there, the first sergeant of the whole squadron got sick. So I assumed his duties. And so when we came back, I was officially given the rank and became the squadron first sergeant of 300 people. So actually 18 months later, we had another deployment to Germany, and this was in Nordholz, Germany. And I was assigned with the German Navy. They had an air wing there, and their mission was to track Russian submarines. So what we would do is we would fly out over the Atlantic, drop sonar booms, and with headphones, you were able to monitor different types of activity and things like that. And so anyway, after all of that, while I was over in England, the University of Maryland and the University of Iowa had extension programs. And so being a coal miner's son and everything, I never really thought I had the intelligence to do anything with the little knowledge that I had. So I took a course, and oh my God, I passed it, and then took a couple of courses and things like that. So when I came back here off of active duty and into Springfield, I had a really good friend that says, why don't you take the credit you got and go up to AIC? So I went up to American International College, and with all my experiences and everything, they gave me a full year. So I started in as a sophomore, and I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology. And then I really got the impetus to go on further. And after another 2.5 years, I got my master's degree in organizational management. So, and then I bought a house through the VA, So that's one great part of the military, because besides all the places you've been, all the experience in the schooling, they gave me the loan for the house, and they paid for both of my degrees. And so then two of my children, like I said, one had cystic fibrosis, then another was born, and she turned out to have cystic fibrosis. So anyway, my youngest daughter died at 19, and the other died at 35, both of cystic fibrosis. So we decided that, it was kind of a rough time and everything, but you get over things like that, and just go on and march on. But my experiences in the military really gave me like a fortitude,
Absolutely.
to kind of move on. And so actually, when I got out of service, I became the director of transportation for the city of Chicopee and all of their public schools and everything.
That's a big job.
Well, I got to backtrack a little bit, because after getting the master's degree, I decided I want to do something else. So the VA paid for me to go to diesel mechanic school. So I worked as a diesel mechanic for about 3 years, and got hooked up with a really good company, and wound up being their regional executive manager for 15 years. And that gave me the experience in transportation. And then I finally retired for the first time officially. And so I was in retirement for about 30 days, and I saw this ad in Chicopee, director of transportation. So I gave it a shot. So the person that interviewed me happened to be a decorated Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart, and the two of us just hit it off like that.
You had a connection.
I had a connection, and I became the director of transportation for the city of Chicopee, their public school system, for 11 years. I retired from there. I got out. I got home after fishing and hunting. I couldn't stake it anymore, so I saw this ad in the paper for here. And I came here, and Mary McNally, it was advertised for 35 hours a week. I said, I can't work full time because I got a pension from a municipality, and going to work for another one, they're going to take my pay, part of my pension away. So I said, I think I can do this job in 19 hours. So that went on for like 2 years here. We just got really busy. So I didn't want to leave here. And I said to Carolyn, I said, how about hiring somebody else? So that's what we did, and we split the work week. And the rest is up to the present. Here we are today.
That is amazing. You truly have, your skills have grown, and you took advantage of a wonderful amount of opportunities to enhance yourself. What about you, Al? Would you do it again? Did you, can you kind of summarize your experiences in the military?
Yes, I would absolutely do it again. But this time I may have went the O route, become an officer, because my father told me, he says, I believe one of your uncles, and I have several uncles, cousins, and that was a vice admiral and I said, Dad, why didn't you tell me?
You could have been an admiral.
Yeah, but no, but no, as a Master Chief, I had an experience. My military experience is, I had a good time. Yes, I am a Vietnam veteran. I spent time in Vietnam in 1970, and went through I'm what they call a blue water sailor, and that's dealing with Agent Orange, like Terry was saying. And now I guess all blue water sailors are covered for medical, in case if we do catch some of these, terrible diseases. And but other than that, no. Even when I was in Vietnam, I got everything I could out of the military and out of the training that I had. I went to college. I got an associate's degree, which really helped me, and from STCC. And I started out with 48 credits because of my military schools and the instructors in the military. It's either life or death. You know, they taught you to stay alive in any type of school that you went to, because most of the time you're in a war zone or in harm's way. And especially aboard ship, you learned the ship basically blindfolded. So you would know where everything was, and everything was in its place. And you had to keep it that way. And also you trained other people to take over your job in case if something happened to you. But and I'm also retired from GE Healthcare. And there I was an auditor or a quality and compliance specialist. And we were trained to do things a certain way and ensured our clinical engineering departments did it the same way. So, and I learned a lot of that in the military. My one real special job is when I first left active duty. I worked at Wyco Prestolite in West Springfield. We designed and developed the electronic ignition systems for the small engines. And my boss, and I believe my name is also on the patents with 5 patents that he got. He got it paid, I think, $1 each for them.
That's an accomplishment, though.
But I got to really, put my skills together. When I grew up as a farmer, my father taught me how to be a mechanic. It's broke. You're not going to break it any more than what it is. You're going to learn to fix. And we had to learn to fix, you thought on, you made a plan, you did it, and hopefully it worked. And I started out as the grease monkey on the combines, you greasing the stuff. And you talk today, everything is shrouds and protection. Back then, the belts were, and you never touched. My father was very specific on, if you touch here, you're dead. Make sure you have the hole dug in the backyard so I don't have to do it. You learned. But that also helped me in my military side. I could think on my feet and repair stuff that people thought could never be repaired, because I would say, I have to fix it, and I'm going to do anything I can to fix it. At home, that's great. My father was also he was a plumber and being a sonarman and in charge of the sonar systems. It was plumbing, electrical, and one part of the equipment that I had to work on that I was in charge of put out 75 volts at 3,000 amps.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess that's a lot.
Oh yeah. It would vaporize you if you hit the wrong part. They would just sweep down the compartment, And you really you listened, you followed the instruction. And that's why I would do it all over again.
Well, I would so appreciate your folks here.
Thank you.
But we're here to honor veterans. Veterans Day is next week. And perhaps you'll share a little bit about your experience as veterans and what you see in the world, because the world has changed a little bit from the time you folks did your service. What's it like to be a veteran in 2022?
Well, as Al was indicating, all the experiences and while you're going through everything that you went through in the military, you are really not looking ahead, so to speak. And once you get out and once you see everything that's going around you, you look back and you really kind of appreciate everything that kind of happened to you. And as a matter of fact, that passion for me really hit me. And I says, well, I got to extend this somehow. So, I mean, I joined the Legion, I belonged to the Polish American Vets and everything, but that still wasn't enough. And I looked around East Long Meadow and I said, we really don't have a Veterans Memorial. There is one, but it's tucked in the way in the side of the town hall. And my personal thought was, if you ask 75% of the people in East Long Meadow, they don't know it's there. And I think that's really true today because I've asked a lot of people. So anyway, we just formed a Veterans Committee and, started the march on and got all our validations from the state and the IRS. And we decided to start fundraising for the Veterans Memorial here in East Long Meadow. And we started out with a budget of $475,000. But because, as everything in inflation, it's now a little over $600,000. But we've, ironically, through fundraising and grants and a lot of businesses stepping up in East Long Meadow, we're now at the point of like $274,000. And out of that, we've already purchased over $100,000 worth of infrastructure for the memorial. We have it stored in a trailer at the fire department, and we still have a little over $107,000 in the bank. And that's kind of where we are today. And for you people out there, our next fundraiser is at Mario's. We're going to be celebrity bartenders on December the 8th from 5 o'clock on. And that is always a great, great time. And we appreciate you being there to help us out in this.
Wonderful. Any closing words, thoughts, Al?
Join the military. You can get a wonderful education from it, and you can get an adventure. Not everything is war. We try to stay out of that. We desperately try to stay out of a war. We don't want it. The best thing is to have an excellent military to keep us safe. And that's all branches. I know I'm Navy, I'm very partial to that. But every branch must work together to keep peace.
Well, gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for being here today, and I'd like to thank you for your service to our country on this Veterans Day 2022. Certainly, it's been an honor to hear your stories, and this is great what you were talking about the Veterans Memorial. So hopefully you'll have a big turnout at Mario's for that event. And is there any other way that people can contribute to this, Terry?
Yes. We sell pavers.
Okay.
We're selling military bracelets. We're selling military T-shirts. But in lieu of everything that I've just said, if people want to make a donation, they can send that to People's Bank, 201 North Main Street in East Long Meadow. And they could make out their check, if that's what it is, to the East Long Meadow Veterans Memorial Committee. They're very familiar over there with what we are doing. They are great people to work with. And I would invite everybody to investigate what we are doing here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. That wraps up another episode of Stories from the View. We'd like to thank Terry Glusko and Al Michaels for being on the program today. Stories from the View podcast is available on the LCAT 01028 channel on YouTube. If you have a story that you'd like to share on the program, contact the Pleasant View Senior Center Director, Aaron Kobler, by stopping by the Pleasant View Senior Center. You can call Aaron at 413-525-5436, extension 1401, or send her an email at aaron.kobler@eastlongmeadowma.gov. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Stories from the View.